So there was an initial report when the spoilers for Dragon Ball Super Broly had come out that Cooler was mentioned in the film, but this was a mistranslation. However, the idea sprung in my head and many other people's heads, what if Toriyama took the character of Cooler, which was created by Takao Koyama back in 1990, and took the character and put him into the modern era of Dragon Ball, sort of rebooted Cooler like what he did with Broly. What kind of storylines and ideas could they come up with to incorporate Cooler into the current story? So we're going to talk about that here on this video, and of course, feel free to leave your ideas in the comment section down below. Now, of course, this video is going to be purely just, speculation, I guess you can call it fan fiction, just kind of like cool, or ideas that we think are cool, no pun intended. They might suck, who knows, but ideas of them taking Cooler and putting him into the modern story of Dragon Ball for it to make sense. Frieza's brother, so to speak. And joining me to discuss this, please welcome back to the channel, and if you're a long-time Geekdom 101 person, you also know this guy. Please welcome Real to Real.
What's up, Geekdom? Always fantastic to be on your channel. Thank you once again for having me on. Yeah, we've done a couple of videos on various different platforms of yours over the last couple days. So, yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yes, we got Creed stuff, Rocky stuff, now Dragon Ball stuff. So, the idea here is what Toriyama did with Broly, which is taking the general character, bits and pieces of his original lore and kind of rebooting him. Now, we're not going to go into heavy Dragon Ball Super Broly spoilers, only the stuff that's been revealed publicly. We're not going to go into too much there, but except for one line where Frieza supposedly says that he has an idea or something like that. And that could, there's a line in the film, I don't know exactly what he says, where he says that after the Broly fight that he got some kind of idea, which is kind of a quasi cliffhanger. And I was thinking that could end up leading to Cooler. So, the first thing that you sent me here on my notes is your idea is to change the fact that Cooler is Frieza's brother, and you're thinking that Toriyama could maybe make Cooler a clone of Frieza instead.
Yeah, okay, so this is going to take a little bit of explaining, but kind of in the same vein of bringing back Broly, kind of with the same story structure as the movies that introduced him. I think if Toriyama wants to start bringing back villains from the past, he needs to reinterpret what we already have of them instead of just recreating them, because he obviously feels very comfortable with that. And one of the things you could do with Cooler is, it's been really long time since Cooler was introduced in the movies, even longer than introducing King Cold. And you're like, okay, what if you introduce Cooler not as Frieza's brother, but you kind of mix and match introduction of Cooler in the first movie and the reintroduction of Cooler in the second movie by having him be a clone of Frieza from the Big Getty Star.
Wait, when you say the first movie, do you mean like
his first movie?
Okay, back in the day. Gotcha. Okay, keep going.
Of course.
Okay.
So a clone of Frieza from DNA recovered by the Big Getty Star, and
AKA V'ger.
Yes. So, yeah, we went over that over before we started recording. But no, okay. The thing is, you have Frieza's biology that has kind of been explored a little bit more in Dragon Ball, and I think really gives a lot of credence to this. When they brought back Frieza in Dragon Ball Super, they brought him back in pieces. His eyes still worked. I mean, every single bit of Frieza's DNA works intangibly. It's like the thing, it just survives on its own no matter where it is, even in the vacuum of space. And one of the things we got from Frieza when he was rescued by King Cold was his right eye was missing. They rebuilt it when they made Mecha Frieza. What happened to the rest of him? Did it disintegrate in the explosion, or could they just simply reintroduce Cooler and the Big Getty Star and all this other stuff by just opening up on a scene in the darkness and vastness of space and just simply going, zooming in until you get to Frieza's right eye, just waking up in the emptiness of space, and then just simply seeing the Big Getty Star as it absorbs his DNA into it, and then recreates Frieza as a clone that calls itself Cooler. That's really my idea.
That's not a terrible idea at all. You're basically incorporating elements from movie 6 as well as, a little bit of Resurrection F. But I do find it interesting, though, that what you could do is, you don't have to go into the whole backstory of the Big Getty Star, but you could also incorporate some ideas from GT. It could be possible that maybe the Big Getty Star in this continuity is basically like the machine mutants, and that, sort of like the Borg. I keep using Star Trek references, but it's very Star Trek-esque. You've got this living machine who's floating in space, and maybe Frieza's eye is the consciousness, is the anger that makes it really realize what it's supposed to be. So that's a pretty good idea right there. My main idea that I had was something that's kind of, I think would be a very unique twist, and that is the fact that Cooler at one time was supposed to be the heir to the throne that King Cold had, and Frieza betrayed and killed Cooler, or so he thought. He betrayed and killed and or exiled Cooler, and that's why Frieza got chosen to be the rightful heir. Now, there was a reveal recently where he talked about how Frieza had all this latent power when he was younger, but it could be possible that Cooler, because he's older and more mature, was originally supposed to take over as the king over King Cold, and Frieza said, I'm going to betray you, pull a Game of Thrones on you, and you know what I mean, and lock you up. And then we find out in the film that Cooler is alive, and maybe Frieza finds Cooler at somewhere in space, somewhere maybe in one of the other universes. Maybe he got exiled to one of their 12 universes. And this is possible because we've seen Yardrats and Sephorians in Universe 2, and to this day, we don't have an explanation as to why they're there, but they are there. We don't know if Universe 2 recruited them or if they were originally from Universe 2, so it could be possible that Frieza finds Cooler and lies to him and tells him that, he could tell him the Saiyans killed him, because maybe Frieza killed him, like, from behind, and Cooler didn't know it was him. And then they could have Frieza and Cooler teaming up to go after Goku, Vegeta, and Broly, and this could lead to a Frieza-Cooler fusion, which is total fan service, but we know that Frieza has witnessed fusion both in the Tournament of Power with the Potara and Gogeta, of course. Now, obviously, when it comes to Frieza's biology, Gogeta would make the most sense, so the idea of them having a Frieza-Cooler fusion, is it lame? Is it fan service? Yeah, but Dragon Ball likes to do a lot of fan service.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love, like, having an idea that we have a fusion between Cooler and Frieza. I mean, like, they're so similar unless you actually have Cooler going into his fifth and final form, or the form that they gave him. Yeah, okay. But if you do that, like, that would be interesting.
Well, what they could also do is they could retcon Cooler to where he's actually not Frieza's brother, and instead he's like an ancient member of his race who has that fifth form, and then Frieza finds him in another dimension, and maybe we find out that Frieza's race, maybe we find out that they actually are from a different dimension, and they came over, and maybe they were exiled, not dimension, I'm sorry, universe. Maybe they're from like Universe 13 or whatever, and they got exiled like X number of years ago, and that's how they wound up in this universe, them being mutants and all that. There's a lot of interesting backstory they could go with when it comes to Cooler and Frieza.
Oh yeah, like, and I feel like one of the things they could do with this as well, whether or not he is an ancient member or something, it would also allow them to tie in Frost and this Universe 6 backstory with all of that and see how they're connected in that way. I mean, they've hinted at that in a lot of ways throughout Dragon Ball Super with the Champa arc and then the Tournament of Power, Frieza and Frost talking together in one way or the other, but just really expanding Frieza's family, whether or not he's an ancient relative or just a member of the species, or maybe, like, as I told you, it could go even as far as having him be Cooler's brother, or maybe Cooler's dad, like Cooler is Frieza's grandfather, anything else like that, because we don't know a whole lot about their species, so just really having that lineage explored a little bit more, and understanding why Frieza has so much potential, why Frost had so much potential, or King Cold, or even this Cooler entity, like, that would be really fun to really dive into, especially with the story inevitably going to end up being Goku and Vegeta and everyone versus Frieza and Cooler, or maybe just even Cooler and Frieza has to fight him as well, or something like that. That's an awesome idea.
Or we get a 6-man tag, bro. Frieza, Cooler, and Frost versus Goku, Vegeta, and Broly. And then we've got more Where's Gohan questions popping up, bro. He ain't here.
Okay, I'm gonna throw something at you though. Like, we didn't talk about this before, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. What if they bring in Cooler's fifth form as King Cold? What if they bring back King Cold and just reinterpret Cooler's transformations for King Cold?
I think that would only work is if it's some kind of quest with sort of do a Thanos thing where King Cold knows about this secret form that nobody knows about except for him, I guess, or a very small number of his race, and he has to find it during the film. Like, he actually has to discover his latent potential during the film. Because one of the problems with Resurrection F is that, we have that skip where Frieza trains and he comes back, he's all of a sudden really powerful, and he's all of a sudden taking on God Goku and whatnot, in Resurrection F, or staying beyond God Goku and just one-shotting Gohan. Whereas I thought it would be a much better idea is if we had Frieza discovering this about himself, about his body, discovering his body like we all did when we were 13, and finding out that, hey, I have a golden form. They could do something like that with King Cole. I don't want him just to have the form and just be like, hey, surprise. That's kind of played out, to be honest. I want it to be an actual quest, because it kind of throws back to like Cell. Like Cell, when he first showed up, wasn't at his best. He had to become his best, and that could work, I think.
But without going into so much spoilers, I mean, there's indication.
I don't want to go into
I'm not going into anything, but like that's like just to go into broad strokes. Like that's what this movie is. It sounds like what they're doing with this movie is really trying to explore a character, and whether it's going to be a movie or an arc or something, like it would be great to reintroduce a character that we already know and don't know very much about, and just give him the forms and maybe even a broader story. Like, okay, he resembles Cooler or something, so we're already attached to him. You don't have to reestablish or retell anything. You don't have to make a brother that was never mentioned. You don't have to do a clone. You don't have to do anything else like that. Just bring back a guy.
Yeah.
And just and like you said, have him go through that journey. Have him understand who he is and like make him a legitimate threat. I mean, I think that would be an interesting story.
Well, I mean, I'll be real with you. You mentioned something. I don't want it to be like, look, the problem with bringing Cooler back and rewriting his story is that I don't want like the long lost brother thing again. We had it with Tarble. We had it with freaking Bulma's sister Tights. It's like, Toriyama's coming up with these characters now and not back then. And it is a retcon. And, with Tarble, at least there's somewhat of an explanation. With Tights, I felt like it was terrible because there wasn't even a hint that Bulma had a sister. When it comes to Frieza and Cooler, they're going to have to me, write a storyline where there's a reason as to why Frieza does not want to reveal he has a brother, if they're going to do that. You know what I mean? I think the idea could be that maybe he forgot all about Cooler because he betrayed him at one point. And maybe by the end of the film, Cooler finds out that Frieza's a prick. And maybe he sacrifices himself or something, bro. I mean, I don't think Cooler should survive the film, but I don't know. There's all kinds of ideas they can do with this guy.
Okay, last one though.
Yeah.
At least from on my part. What if Frieza's son? Because this is already part of the story, like.
Come on, bro. I don't know about that one.
I'm just saying, like,
Kariza's already Frieza's son, bro. I'm okay with them bringing in Kariza.
No, but like either way, like I said, it serves the exact same purpose as King Cold kind of taking on Cooler's role in Cooler's transformations or something else like that. It's a pre-established character that is not as wonky as just simply long lost brother, the prodigal son returning or something else like that. This is something we already knew existed in this world, and we're just expanding upon it. You know what I mean?
I understand. I mean, I just think that the idea of him being Frieza's brother is probably going to stay, just because, Broly and Paragus, like, that story was pretty simple. I mean, as far as their relation to each other and to the entire race. But Toriyama will have to get creative as far as figuring out how to make it not be contrived. But then again, Toriyama might not even care, bro. I mean, he doesn't care. Like, everybody has a long-lost brother. Pretty soon we'll find out that there was actually another laboratory underneath freaking Dr. Garo.
Another cell.
They did that with 13. There was another, like, computer or something, or the computer created him or whatever. They could do something like that again.
Mm-hmm.
Android 10, 11, and 12, bro.
We never saw him. But no, I like the idea of... I do like the idea of, the getting backstabbing. Maybe Cooler's just kind of been in another universe or something, or just really exploring the history of these, whatever you want to call them. Some people call them the Frost Giants or other things. Like, I don't know.
Frost
like
Giants.
The Frieza race.
Frost Demons. Frost Giants are from
Frost
Thor,
Demons.
bro. Well, the official name is Frieza's race. There is an Arcosian and Frost Demon and all. Those are all fan names. Well, no. Frost Demons was said in one of the games. And
it was Xenoverse.
Yeah, it was. And that
was, Frieza race was in Xenoverse. But
Cell calls them Frost Demons, and then Arcosian was said in the old Ocean dub, but that's also incorrect. They're just they don't have a race name, but maybe that could be part of the story. Maybe we find out what they actually are in the Cooler movie if they make one.
No, I feel like if they ever reintroduce Cooler into the canon of the story, canon is such a wonky word in our community.
My channel, real.
But no, the thing is like if they ever do, that's the main story. I think that is the driving force, is really understanding where Frieza came from and his lineage. Whether you're bringing in, like you said, someone from the ancient past coming back to haunt, because we don't know how long these people survive or whether or not they have any indication of time travel, but King Cold knows everything. Or you're just exploring like the brother relationship or anything else like that. There's so much to explore there, and I think people would really eat it up.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that completely. Let us know your ideas in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. I'm sure there's going to be some good ones and some not so good ones, but I'm sure most will be good. The Dragon Ball community is pretty good at coming up with stuff, so hopefully we'll get some good ones. And check out Reel to Reel.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.